She thought no one would ever hear her story. But now you have. Subscribe to give voice to others like her. My name is Sarah, and I'm 28 years old. What I'm about to tell you is something I've never shared with anyone, not even my closest friends. For 3 years, I lived entirely on donations from strangers who believed they were helping a struggling single mother. But the truth about what I was really doing with that money would shock everyone who knew me. It started innocently enough. I had just lost my job at the marketing firm, and my savings were running out fast. My daughter Emma was only 5 then, and I was desperate. That's when I discovered online crowdfunding platforms. I created a simple profile explaining my situation, honest at first. Within days, kind strangers were sending small amounts to help us get by, but what happened next changed everything about who I thought I was. The donations kept coming, sometimes $50, sometimes more. People left encouraging messages, telling me to stay strong, that better days were ahead. I felt guilty taking their money, but Emma needed food and our rent was due. I told myself it was temporary, just until I found another job. Weeks turned into months, and I realized something terrifying. I had become addicted to the donations. Not just the money, but the attention, the sympathy, the feeling that people cared about me. Every notification of a new donation gave me a rush I had never experienced before. That's when I started lying. I began embellishing my stories, making our situation sound more desperate than it really was. I posted about unexpected medical bills that didn't exist, about Emma needing special medication she didn't require. The donations increased dramatically. Suddenly, we weren't just surviving, we were comfortable, but I couldn't stop there. The lies kept growing bigger and more elaborate. I created fake hospital documents, staged photos of Emma looking sick when she was perfectly healthy. I even learned to cry on command for the videos I posted, begging for help with manufactured emergencies. My followers ate it up, sharing my posts, bringing in even more donors. The money was pouring in now, sometimes over $1,000 a week. I wasn't just living on donations anymore, I was thriving on them. Designer clothes, expensive dinners, a new car. I justified it all by telling myself that Emma deserved the best, that we had suffered enough poverty. What I didn't realize was that someone was watching me very carefully. A woman named Margaret had been following my story from the beginning. She was a retired social worker who had donated regularly, always leaving kind messages about her own struggles as a single mother. Decades earlier. But Margaret had sharp eyes and an even sharper memory. She started noticing inconsistencies in my stories. Medical bills that didn't match the timeline I had given. Photos of Emma that seemed too staged, too perfect for a sick child. Details about our financial situation that didn't add up. But what really caught her attention was seeing me at an upscale restaurant in downtown, laughing and drinking wine while my latest post claimed we couldn't afford groceries. Margaret didn't confront me directly. Instead, she did something that would destroy everything I had built. She started documenting evidence. She screenshotted every inconsistency, saved every photo, recorded dates and amounts. She even hired a private investigator to verify some of my claims. What they found was damning evidence of systematic fraud spanning almost 2 years. I had no idea any of this was happening. I was too busy planning my next sob story, my next emotional video that would bring in more donations. I had become so good at manipulation that I almost believed my own lies. Then came the day that changed everything forever. I was at home, editing a particularly dramatic video about Emma supposedly needing emergency dental work when I heard the knock at the door. Through the peephole, I saw 2 police officers standing on my porch. My blood went cold. They had a warrant for my arrest on charges of wire fraud, theft by deception, and exploitation of charitable donations. Margaret had taken her evidence to the authorities, and they had been investigating me for months, as they read me my rights. All I could think about was Emma. She was at school, completely unaware that her mother was a criminal, that are comfortable. Life was built on lies and the kindness of strangers I had betrayed. The worst part wasn't the legal consequences, though those were severe. The worst part was facing Emma that night, trying to explain why Mommy might have to go away, why we would have to move, why people were saying terrible things about us on the internet. I had stolen over $60,000 from people who trusted me, people who gave from their own limited resources because they believed in helping a struggling family. The investigation revealed that some of my regular donors were elderly people on fixed incomes. Others were struggling families themselves, who gave what little they could spare. But what the police discovered next revealed just how deep my deception had gone. They found that I hadn't just been running one fraudulent campaign. I had created multiple fake identities, multiple sob stories, multiple children who didn't exist. Emma wasn't even my only daughter online. I had been collecting donations for fictional families, fake medical emergencies, made-up disasters. I had become a professional victim, a master manipulator who had turned human compassion into a profitable business model. The investigation expanded, revealing that I was part of a larger network of people running similar scams. We shared techniques, compared notes on which stories generated the most sympathy and donations. It was organized, calculated, and completely heartless. During the trial, victim after victim testified about how my lies had affected them. Margaret stood up and read a letter from an elderly man who had donated his Social Security money because he believed Emma needed medicine. A single mother who had gone without groceries to help us pay rent. A disabled veteran who gave his disability check because he thought we were facing eviction. Their words cut deeper than any prison sentence could. Was sentenced to 3 years in federal prison and ordered to pay full restitution, though the judge noted that the emotional damage I had caused couldn't be quantified. Or repaid. Emma went to live with my sister during my incarceration. I wrote her letters every day, trying to explain the inexplicable, trying to teach her that integrity matters more than comfort, that honesty is more valuable than money. The hardest moment came when she visited me in prison for the first time. She looked at me through that glass partition and asked the question that still haunts me. Mommy, why did you lie to all those nice people who wanted to help us? I had no answer that could make it right, but prison gave me something I hadn't had. An year's time to think, to understand what I had become and why. I participated in every rehabilitation program available, worked with therapists to understand my addiction to sympathy and attention. I learned that my behavior had a name: pathological lying combined with financial desperation that had morphed into sophisticated fraud. I wasn't just a criminal, I was sick, addicted to the validation that came from being seen as a victim worthy of help. Recovery meant facing the truth about who I had become and who I wanted to be for Emma when I was released. After serving 18 months, the world had moved on, but the internet hadn't forgotten. My story was still circulating as a cautionary tale about online donation fraud. Finding work was nearly impossible. Most employers wouldn't hire someone with a fraud conviction, but I was determined to rebuild our lives honestly this time. No matter how difficult. I started working 3 part-time jobs, cleaning offices at night, stocking shelves at dawn, doing data entry from home during the day. The money was barely enough to cover our basic needs, but it was honest money. Every dollar was earned through legitimate work, not manipulation or lies. Emma and I lived in a small apartment, furnished with secondhand items and clearance finds. But there was something different about our home now. It was built on truth. No more lies, no more schemes, No more looking over my shoulder, wondering when the next shoe would drop. The hardest part was learning to live without the constant validation I had become addicted to. No more messages of support, no more people telling me I was brave or strong. Just the quiet satisfaction of honest work and authentic relationships. I started volunteering at a local nonprofit that helped people apply for legitimate assistance programs. My experience with fraud, paradoxically, made me uniquely qualified to help others navigate the system honestly. I could spot the warning signs of desperation that lead to bad decisions because I had lived through them myself, but the real test of my transformation came when Emma asked me to speak at her school about honesty and consequences. Standing in front of those children, including Emma's classmates who knew our story, I told the truth about what greed and desperation had driven me to do. I explained how lies grow bigger and more complicated until they destroy everything you care about. One little boy raised his hand and asked, "Why didn't you just ask for help the right way?" The simplicity of his question hit me like a physical blow. There had been legitimate resources, available programs for single mothers, job placement services, food banks, childcare assistance. I had been so focused on the easy money from strangers online that I hadn't explored the proper channels that existed to help families like ours.